Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1365B, and today's date is August 28th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Warning from the U.S. Infrastructure Council, 9/11 level cyber attack, imminent. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I placed 2 interviews on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel over the weekend. One is with Brandon Smith. The other one is with Edward Carr. So all you need to do is go over to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. You can see the videos there. Come over to the x22report.com site. You'll see the videos on the right-hand side. All you need to do is scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side, and play the videos right there. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like social media, well, they're pushing their agenda quite hard, and it looks like YouTube, they're going after former U.S. Congressman Ron Paul. He's joined the growing list of independent political journalists and commentators who are being economically punished by YouTube. Now, again, he is a congressman, a former congressman, and they don't like what he's saying. And it seems like that whoever speaks out against the establishment, against what they're trying to do, against the corporate media, and they're trying to, tell a different story, guess what happens? You are censored one way or another. And we've seen this before. I mean, basically what they're doing is they're trying to put all these little businesses who make a little bit of money from monetizing their video, they're trying to put them out of business any way they possibly can. So you hear from none of these individuals. Now, some people, they make their entire living doing this. Other people, it's a part-time thing. And other people don't even monetize, so they're not even affected. And we could see right now that they're going after everyone. Now, once they clean up house, and if they can push it this far and they get rid of all those people that were making money off of it, the next step is to go after the rest of the people. They're not just going to stop, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to silence everyone. And we can see this is exactly what is happening. We see Bay Area TV anchors. They are saying that they have experienced hate firsthand in Berkeley from Antifa. And what we're seeing is that Frank Somerville, who is a well-known Bay Area TV personality, said, listen, I have to come out and say this, but during this whole thing, we saw Antifa. They were dressed up in black. They had clubs. Some had gas masks. Some had shields. And they were chanting, ironically, no hate. And what we saw them do was destroy things. They were, dressed up, hiding their faces, and they were chanting no hate, but they were spewing hate, which is very odd. And he was very nervous to come out and talk about this, but he did come out and he talked about this, and he's letting everyone know that, these groups that we're seeing right now, they are dangerous. Now, we see that the OSCE representative on freedom of the media, he is calling on the U.S. administration to refrain from attacks on the media as they cause deep concern and degrade the essential role the media plays in a democratic society. But you need to remember this. They're not telling the whole entire story, because the corporate media is controlled by the cabal, the deep state, and they are the mouthpiece for the cabal and deep state, and they only take one side. This is what everyone has been noticing. And we can see that the cabal, it looks like they took the OSCE and said, listen, we need you to come out and say that Trump is hurting the freedom, of the media. And they're pushing this idea that if you say anything against the media, if you decide to call them out on something, that this is going to hurt anything. No, the media is free and open. They make mistakes. They're controlled by other entities. And if people see something wrong, they call them out on it, just like you can call the government out on it. You can question their stories. You can question the reports. I mean, everyone on the alternative media, yes, question everything. Ask, why is this? Why isn't it this way? Why is it that way? Everyone needs to do that, because the more you do this, the more information we get, and the more that these individuals have to prove what they're saying. Now, this is actually very troubling, because it looks like Trump is going to lift the Obama-era ban on sale of military weapons to the police. Now, Obama only put a ban on this because he saw the public outrage after the many riots around the country. And they all dressed in army gear, and it was very scary. And the people all across the nation said, well, wait a minute, why is this? Why do we have the military in the United States? This makes no sense. So what we're seeing right now is that Trump, all of a sudden, is deciding to lift this ban. And I don't think the police should have had any type of military equipment. Now, they're saying this is defensive only. It's no problem. But guess what? There's no reason to have any of this equipment. There's no reason to do it. But we can see right now that this is what they're doing. And why? Because they know eventually what is going to happen. The economy is going to break down. There's going to be riots. They're going to need to maintain control. And from everything that we're seeing, it shows us that, well, nothing's changed. The same path that we were on before, where the economy is going to collapse, where they're going to have to maintain order, they're going to have to control the population, there might be riots. Well, we're still on course for this. Because what other reason would they need to give all this type of military equipment to the local police? What are they expecting to happen? Think about it. We have gone something like, 200 years, and the police never needed military equipment whatsoever. Why do they need it? Unless they expect something to happen, and that's exactly what is going on here. We see Congress quietly passed a bill which allows warrantless searches of homes. Now, only 1% of Congress oppose this. And once again, this is in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now, this bill will allow homes to be searched without a warrant, and it was passed with an overwhelming support by the United States Congress and signed into law by Trump. Now, this is called the House Joint Resolution 76. It looks really harmless. The title of the bill claims that its purpose is granting the consent and approval of the Congress for the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state of Maryland, and the District of Columbia to enter into a compact relating to the establishment of the Washington Memorial Safety Commission. Now, the proposal for a safety commission to act as a wing of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority may sound very logical when its power includes things such as the ability to adopt, revise, and distribute a written state safety oversight program, and to review, approve, oversee, and enforce the adoption of implementation of the WMATA's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. However, there is one major red flag in all of this, buried within the text of the bill, that stems from the list of powers given to the Washington Memorial Safety Commission, and it violates one of the basic tenets of the U.S. Constitution. The text gives the Commission the authority to enter property near the Metro Rail system without limitation, without a warrant, for the purpose of making inspections, investigations, examinations, and testing. This clearly violates the Fourth Amendment. And we know the Fourth Amendment states that the American people have the right to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and they shall not be violated. And we can see they buried this in this bill. Amazing. Now, China, they are going to invite 5 more countries to join the BRICS system. And what we're seeing right now is the countries are Guinea, Mexico, Thailand, Tajikistan, and the 5th country that was invited was Egypt. And all of this is being done for the Belt and Road system. They're setting everything up, and they're bringing all of these countries into the fold. We can see the U.S., they sanctioned Venezuela, And we can see that this was aimed at worsening the internal situation in that country to remove Maduro. We see that China and Russia, they completely oppose the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, saying that this is not going to help whatsoever. It's going to make the situation much, much worse. But we know for a fact this is the reason why they did this. We see on Friday, North Korea, they fired 3 short-range ballistic missiles, and basically each one, it fell short before the flight was completed. A couple of them blew up, and it looks like that it really didn't work out as well as they thought. And at this point, the missiles were not successful whatsoever. We see North Korea right now. They have said that the drills in South Korea, well, this is a threat to their security. Now, they're bringing this up in the UN, in the Security Council. They want a joint discussion with the South Korea, with the United States, with the other nations in the UN, and they want to discuss what is happening here. And we can see that, once again, the United States is pushing and provoking North Korea. North Korea is going to continually test their missile systems because they've seen what happens to other countries. They're invaded, they have regime change, and North Korea right now, they're doing whatever they possibly can to protect themselves. Now, a couple reports back, we talked about how Ukraine was helping North Korea, and it was reported on, and North Korea right now is saying this is completely not true, and all of a sudden, they have this video which was released showing that there were 2 North Korean spies being snared in an undercover sting as proof the country is not assisting Kim Jong-un's nuclear missile program. And I just find this very convenient that all of a sudden, through this undercover work, they snatch these 2. To me, it sounds like it was a complete setup. It looks like these are patsies, and they're trying to use this to convince the world that they have nothing to do with this. Afghanistan, the ambassador there wants Russia, not the U.S., to help restore peace in the country. So the Afghan ambassador to Moscow said Saturday that Kabul wants Russia's assistance in restoring peace to their country. They believe the United States, they've been there for a very long time, that they don't have the ability to do this. And we can see right now, the United States has caused the war. The United States, the cabal, the deep state, they've made it a lot worse, just like they made it a lot worse throughout the Middle East. And they're continually making it a lot worse because they're not really going after the terrorists. They control the terrorists, and they want this chaos to continue. Why? Because it makes them a lot of money. They protect the poppy fields. They expand the poppy fields all across the country, and they use the poppy fields to create opium. They sell it across the world. This is where they get their black pools of funds, and they use it for covert operations. This is exactly what's been going on there, and we can see this is why the Afghanistan ambassador doesn't want the U.S. in the country anymore. Russia has reported that they've shot down several Israeli drones in Syria's airspace, where they're saying that they were these unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. They were flying around, looking at all different things, and they just completely shot them down. Actually, Russia has been given warnings that if you fly into Syria, guess what? You will be shot down. And I think Israel, maybe they were testing the waters, flying the unmanned vehicles in there to see what they would actually do. And they went ahead and they shot them down. We see the Syrian army, they advanced along the Jordanian border. They're pushing towards the U.S. base. And what's very interesting is that they're getting closer and closer to the U.S. base there. They're taking control of the Jordanian border. We also see that the Islamic State, they are leaving the Syrian-Lebanon border zone. They have lost the battle. They made their offensive. They are packing up and they are leaving right now. And we can see that Syria is they're going to be controlling the entire border region right now, which means the Islamic State is not going to receive any type of supplies whatsoever. Now, what's very interesting, there is a report that came out from the National Infrastructure Advisory Council. And this report, and they've reviewed hundreds of studies and interviews of 38 industry experts, And what they're saying is that the government and the private sector, they are not prepared for any type of cyber attack whatsoever. The private sector, the government sector, they just don't have everything set up where they can ward off a cyber attack. And this is why they're saying that everything is completely open. Now, remember, they want it completely open. They don't want the private industry, they don't want the government agencies to be protected. And you're probably asking yourself, well, why wouldn't the private industry be protected? They have, the firewalls, they have people working on it, the government has people working on it. Remember, the intelligence agencies, they have compromised all the systems. They have backdoors, which nobody knows about. They've taken software, they've burned them into chips on hard drives, into the BIOS, and many other areas, and your computer doesn't even have to be on, your laptop doesn't have to be on, your phone doesn't have to be on. So if they've done this in all these systems, guess what? They're open to attack. And they did this on purpose so they can gain access anytime they wanted. But again, anyone who's looking to gain access and find this, who's smart enough, like state actors, they will be able to get into the system. Now, I think what they're saying here is that the entire industry, well, it is completely open to a 9/11 level cyber attack. Now, remember 9/11, where the World Trade Center, they both collapsed, and other buildings, and we know, we don't have to go back into the whole story of, who set this up. We know that this was a false flag. We know other buildings were brought down. We know the United States government was part of this, and there were other countries that were also part of this, because it was a joint effort to do all of this. The same thing's going to happen with a cyber attack. This is not going to be something where another country is actually hitting the financial institutions. I believe what they're trying to show everyone is that, okay, we are not protected from this. The private industry, the government agencies, they have to say the private industry because that's the banking systems, because they want everyone aware that there could be some type of cyber attack, and it could be as bad as 9/11. Now, think about if something actually hit and they got into the system, which I believe there's already software there just waiting to be turned on, and the malware will then do its job. I think still they're going to be bringing down the financial system. Remember, the central bank realizes, and those in the cabal, the deep state, they realize their system, it's coming to an end. They can't be blamed for any of this. They don't want to be blamed for this because they want to restart their system. Because if people start to realize central banks destroyed the economy, well, they're going to look at Russia and say, well, they got rid of their central bank. Why don't we get rid of our central bank? And I'm talking about the private Western Central Bank, the Rothschild Bank. And they don't want this to happen. So they always need to make it look like it is happening in another way. And if they can say there was a cyber attack and they never have to really prove it, they just come out and say it, the corporate media will just continually repeat it, saying that, yes, the banking system was hit. And of course, in the beginning, they might say, don't worry about it. It was just a small attack. Some of the ATMs, they're down a little bit. We're going to have to close the banks over the weekend. It might happen on a Friday, and we might have to shut it all down. And as time goes on, they're going to come out with more reports saying it was a lot worse than they really thought. The banks are going to have to continually be shut down. We can't open it right now. People can't withdraw their money. And you can see how they'll have the ability to make a small situation into something very, very large. And people will believe it. They will believe that this is really happening, that another country is actually attacking, and the government doesn't have to prove it because the corporate media is going to repeat it over and over and over. Remember when we heard the story about North Korea hitting Sony? Well, North Korea never hit Sony. It was a disgruntled employee who worked for Sony. That's how this individual was able to get into the system. But the corporate media, and the government just came out and just continually pushed that story. Think about the Russian hacking into the election. They kept pushing that to the very end. The same thing's going to happen with this next event. This is why everyone needs to be ready and prepared for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.